Look at that. Fuck. What's going on? Connection dropped out. Alrighty. We're live on Facebook. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Now, lots of people don't really know how to plant standard roses. And so I'm going to take you from when you bought your standard roses right through to how you get them planted and how you get them started, and take all the mystery out of planting standard roses. And there's a few little tricks to it. Now, first of all, this is how standard roses come. In particular, from our nursery, we have that we wrap them in moist potting mix and plastic, and after you walk away from the nursery, you can actually keep your you can keep them in this package for really 3 or 4 weeks without watering them. And what you do is you wouldn't put it in the sun. You'd put it, if you're not going to plant them for a week or two, put them under a tree or under a bush or under the carport, somewhere cool and shady, so that they're out of the sun and they can just sit like that at the moment. They don't really need watering. It would only be if they're kept in there for a real long time, you might water the bag. But basically, they're sealed in there, they're asleep, and you leave them like that. And even when you bring them out on the day you're doing the gardening, I'm not going to unwrap this package until I'm going to get prepared to plant first, and then I'll unwrap the package, because out today it's fairly warm and sunny, and if you just left them laying around bare rooted, it doesn't do them any good. So what I would do is I would leave them like this until we're ready to plant, and then I'll unwrap them then and show you what to do. So we'll start off. Now what I'm doing here, this is a cottage garden, and we're going to plant one as a specimen, and the cottage garden has a theme of mauve. So I'm using Charles de Gaulle, which is a beautiful fragrant lavender mauve standard rose, a very, very hardy one. It's got flowers that you can pick, perfect for a cottage garden. And Facebook, that's good. And this soil, it's full of worms. It's a nice quality clay, but we'll still, to open it up a little bit, we don't want to get overly wet. We'll dig a nice deep hole, and what we'll do is we'll mix a bit of potting mix into it to lighten it up a little.
Drop us a like if you're enjoying the
now
live, guys.
For good drainage, like to plant the rose. Actually, it's a funny thing. The very first plant I ever planted was I was helping my Uncle Bob. I was a little kid staying at my Uncle Bob's place, and I was interested in. He was planting roses, and I was interested. I asked him if I could plant one, and he was actually a gruff old bugger. But I don't know. He actually stopped and showed me how to plant a rose, which was unusual for him to take the time with me. But what he did was he dug a nice big hole, then he filled it back in with loose soil, and he said, what you do is you make a little hill, and he said you spread the roots on the hill, and then you cover it up. And I remember that to this day, and I've always planted roses that way. And he was a chap who, very keen horticulturalist. He used to win lots of prizes at the Box Hill Horticultural Society. He was kind of famous for his horticulture, and so he definitely knew how to plant a rose. And I remember he used to have quite a nice rose garden. So we're down 40 centimetres deep, and I'm just chopping up the bottom now because we don't really need to excavate that out. I'm going to fill it right back in. Now, one of the mistakes that people make with planting roses is that they don't want their rose to blow over, so they put it right down deep in a big hole like what I've dug now, and it's like, and down deep, roses can suffer from, if you put them in too deep, particularly in Melbourne's clay soil. If you put the roses in too deep, what can happen is that down deep you're likely to get wet. Okay. So roses in too deep often get wet.
How deep is that, you reckon, Chris?
I reckon, well, it's really about 40-45, because it's deeper than, it's like I haven't shoveled the bottom bit out. I've just chopped it up down there.
Okay.
There's about loose soil. I've got about 20 centimeters of loose soil just in the bottom of it.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix in a bit of potting mix and kind of fill that hole up. And what's going to hold our rose up is we're going to stake it. So you don't, the roses really seem to like to being planted fairly shallow, and so I'm not using the depth of the soil, but I'm going to use the stake to hold it up.
Feel free to drop any questions you guys have, or drop us a like if you're enjoying the live.
So I've nearly filled the hole back up, because it is a clay soil around here, and we don't want this to get wet feet.
Thanks, Blazing. It's not actually ours.
Then I'm doing what my old Uncle Bob said. I'm making a nice little hill in the middle of the hole.
Okay.
And now what people always ask me is how deep you plant your rose in. Now, so you notice that I haven't unsealed my wrapped up roses. Now here's your wrapped up roses here.
And that's in moist soil, is it?
Yeah. They're moist soil, they're nice and moist. Still got a bit of clay sticking to them. And these are good roses, they're nice full root system. Now people always wonder, do they plant it here or they plant it here? And what I do is I run my finger down there here like this, and it's a pretty, and there's a colour change down here, and I reckon that is where I'm going to plant it up to, about there.
Okay.
So it'll be just in, and then we'll.
And you feel for it, do you?
What's that?
You feel for it.
There's a color. You look. There's a color change. The where it was in the air before, it was bright green.
Okay.
And and this one here has been poked in as a cutting. Quite how they make a standard roses. This is a wild rose cane here, and they poked it in the ground, struck it as a cutting, and then they've put 2 grafts on the top, and that the 2 grafts is what make the actual standard rose. This is an old wild rose, and they've poked it in the ground. Now this one here has been poked in fairly deep, and he was in. You can see the color change here where he turns from green. Where he turns from green to sort of brown, that's where he was in about there in the field. But I'm going to halve that distance because I want him in nice and shallow in this clay soil. So I'm going to put him into about that level there.
Okay.
And
show us how it's done.
Now have a look. So like my old Uncle Bob taught me 50 odd years ago, is have it nice little point like that, then spread. Now a lot of people trim the roots. What I do is spread the roots out nicely, center it on that little mound, spread the roots out nicely. I don't think in this, I can't see any reason for trimming the roots.
Okay.
And we'll mix some potting mix. A bit of potting mix lightens up and aerates the clay, and then the topsoil broken up nicely. Firm it up a little bit, but no need to really pack it in, because what's going to hold this up, basically, I like to plant roses so shallow that if you don't stake them, they fall over.
Okay. And why is that, Chris?
Well, because the number one job, people don't realise this, everybody thinks roots are looking for water, but the number one thing that they're looking for is oxygen.
Okay.
And so oxygen can be found in plenty of oxygen you'll find in nice loose soil close to the surface, not down deep.
Okay.
And not in compacted soil.
Right.
So.
And does the loose soil help the roots find their own way?
Yeah. There's what's going to happen with these roses. If you look at this rose, it's got a little bit of bud movement up here.
Yep.
And it's going to start growing roots immediately. Like roses are not really growing now, but they are growing, and they are moving right now. And so at any rate, what we'll do is, now we're ready. Now a lot of people buying a rose would buy a stake the same sort of size and length. But the thing is, what's going to happen with this rose? The head's going to grow nice and big on it, and in no time at all, the head will need some support. And so if we use a nice tall stake like this, it will be able to offer support to the head of the rose. And a lot of people...
Thanks for letting us know, Kels.
Yeah, a lot of people, what they would do is they would just have the stake up to here on the rose. But what happens if the stake is only up to here on the rose? You get a storm, and the big head there is all heavy with water, and a big wind comes, and all the pressure when the wind comes is right here. But what we're going to do with this is we'll have it, I like the stake to be up a little bit higher. So that when you've got a big heavy head in summer and you've got that summer storm, if you attach the head onto the stake later on when it grows, what'll happen, you just leave that little bit there to attach. What'll happen is the whole thing can move together, and it stops the head from breaking off in a storm in summer.
Okay.
Now, the next thing, people wonder what to... See the scissors? Has anyone seen the scissors?
Maybe in the truck?
No, I brought them out.
Okay.
I used it to cut. Oh, there, I used it there, thanks. Thanks a lot.
While you're doing that, Chris, Shakar asked, while purchasing bare-rooted plants, do you recommend buying the plants which are budding as if they're required to be planted right away, or one can wait?
It depends on the time of year. If I was buying a rose in August, for instance, and I didn't see any buds, I'd be worried that the rose was dead. But at this time of year, you'll still get, there's one here, it's just got slight bud emergence. But little buds are good, because little buds tell you it's alive. It tells you it's well.
Okay.
And so there is an advantage. So basically, the next step is to attach this to the stake. I'm going to use black electrical tape.
Okay.
Now, what I like about the black electrical tape is after a year or so, you will have to replace it. But for the next 12 months, this tape here will be nice and strong, and it will, and you start your staking from right down the bottom. You start your taping, from right down the bottom. But it'll be nice and strong, and it's got that bit of elasticity in it, so that it will actually, grow.
Have a bit of give, huh?
Yeah, it'll grow. As this rose will expand a lot in the next 12 months, and this will actually grow with the rose.
Okay.
So I put it, and what I'd also do is, so that to minimize, and also with the electrical tape, what you'll find is that the standard doesn't sort of move around so much. If you have it tied loosely with string, it can move around and move backwards and forwards in the wind. And what will happen is that now what I'm doing is that the rose, all of these rose canes, they're all, if you look really close at them, they've all got a bit of a bend this way or that. And if you do 2 or 3 nice tight ties with the electric tape, you can get a really nice straight stem. So you start off down low, and then I'll come up to the middle, and now one of the things you'll notice is I haven't put fertilizer on.
Okay.
And you might have thought I just forgot.
Okay.
But I didn't. What's going on is that this plant is really quite asleep at the moment. It's got nutrients inside it, and it really doesn't need any fertilizer, I don't reckon, till about August.
Okay.
We don't want to be stimulating it for no reason. So this one here will get a good dose of Osmocote in the middle of August.
Okay. And would you would you mulch straight away or?
Um, you can mulch straight away,
Okay.
or you can just leave it here. We'll put some of the mulch back and tidy this up a bit.
Right, yeah. Okay.
But here we are. This one's nice and straight. It's nice and firm in the ground. And in summer, when that head grows, you've got a little bit of timber stake up here to attach the head onto, so that the whole thing can move as one.
Okay.
So there we are.
And will that allow the plant to grow more buds if it's more supported?
Yes, it like not being sort of, like this is very secure now, and so what it will really encourage is really good root growth, and really good growth on top from being securely planted. And all it wants now, it doesn't really need any fertilizer. It just needs moist, open, loose, airy ground. So I haven't compacted that ground very hard, and we'll just, there was mulch here before. We'll just put that mulch back, and a little bit of succulent ground cover here.
Right.
So there we are, a beautiful Charles de Gaulle rose. And actually, the one last thing, I have to go get my secateurs, and I'll trim up. You'll often get a little broken branch or two from these bare-rooted roses, and that just needs a little broken branch trimmed up, and it'll be right. I'll just grab my secateurs.
Cool. Alrighty, guys. If you have questions, now is the time. Be wrapping up soon, but let us know if you like the live, and maybe we can do more of these in the future. It's a Charles de Gaulle. I have the tag just here. People want to see what it looks like. It's Charles de Gaulle.
Charles de Gaulle is my favourite fragrant rose is a Double Delight, and my second favourite is a Charles de Gaulle. It's a fragrance that some roses you smell them and then you wonder if the fragrance is really there or it's just an imaginary thing. But with a Charles de Gaulle or a Double Delight, it's like you smell it and go bang. That's definitely got a big fragrance, and I like that big strong fragrance. It's a beautiful fragrance, but it's a nice big strong fragrance, and you're not wondering whether you can smell it or not.
Yeah, nice.
So,
doesn't leave you guessing. I like that.
No, and it's a good, hardy, easy to grow rose. Perfect rose. It'll make a nice big feature and fit in well with this cottage garden that we've got here.
There's a lot of purple in this garden, so
yeah.
Purple and white will go well. Excellent. You want to say anything else, Chris?
No. Has anyone got any questions about bare-rooted roses?
So Kels was asking if these are daisies. What kind of daisies are they?
They're an old-fashioned white marguerite. You know, it's one of the bigger growing ones, and it's a real nice old-fashioned one.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And here you've got a Hebe inspiration just there.
That's very nice.
And behind it, you've got some buddleias popping up, which will give us a good show in spring.
Excellent. Alrighty, guys. Any questions? 5 minutes before we go. Let us know now. Anything else you want to say about bare root, Chris? Would you put a Nishiki willow there? Because it kind of goes. It's in between, you know. It's pink and purple and white.
Yeah, and the Nishiki willow, and the Nishiki willow is such a pretty thing. You can put one almost anywhere.
Okay.
It looks particularly good with your Hamptons garden because it's got those pinks and whites in spring, and it's just a lovely small, bright sort of a thing, and it's very, very unusual. The Nishiki willow comes as a low bush, or it comes grafted up high, and you have a nice, a nice ball on a stick.
Excellent. Erica asked, would you mulch it? the rose.
Yes, yes, a little bit of mulch, particularly here. Like if drainage was an issue, I wouldn't bother mulching in the winter. But here, the drainage looks pretty good, so a bit of mulch would be good.
Okay. And just there asked, is bare rooted the most successful way to plant roses in your opinion?
Look, bare rooted or potted, you'll still do well. But what's great about bare root is that you're saving money.
Mm.
If you want 10 or a dozen, it's easy. And you'll find, like in a nursery like ours, you'll find that there's 2,000 roses sitting there at the moment, so you can get 10 of this or 5 of that or 3 of that. Whereas in the potted season, you can't fit that many roses in your nursery. They're that much dearer. So to do a real fabulous rose expo, to do that fabulous rose garden, bare rooted is really the only time to really step out and do that.
Okay.
Really express yourself with roses.
Okay. Yeah, and budget friendly, right?
Yeah, well, it's your budget, it's transportation, it's
Yeah.
ease of handling, ease of planting.
Would you say
and
it's
choices?
Would you say it's beginner friendly? Because like the plant is dormant, so you kind of have room to mess about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got more tolerance than a summer planted rose. Yeah.
Okay, great. Alrighty, guys. Any more questions? 2 more minutes, and we're out of here. Cool. Anything else?
Actually, I'll just tell you about something interesting. Something that's been very, very scarce is that there's and it's particularly interesting for people with just a small garden. I use them a lot in my garden designs. Is that we've got some Acer globosums available this week, and an Acer globosum sounds kind of weird, but what it is, it's a beautiful thick stem with a sort of a compact round maple tree on the top of it. It has fabulous autumn color, and if you want a small tree with a non-invasive root system, and you want to have a clear trunk so you can walk up and down the garden path or grow flowers or something like that, and you want a real statement tree, we've got Acer globosums available bare root for $200 each. Beautiful big advanced ones. They're about 8 foot tall, 6 foot stem, nice big head on them.
That's massive.
Yeah.
How much would they be like in a pot?
Around 500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Just there asks how to stay on top of black spot before it takes over in spring. As in, are there preventative measures for black spot?
Yeah, there is. People, as a natural thing, people talk about using spraying milk, and I haven't tried that, but I mean, you could try that. But you'll find that there's rose fungicides, and down at Bunnings you'll find also, we don't sell rose sprays, but you'll find an all-purpose rose spray which handles insects and fungus. And I mean, that's all I would use, is just get the all-purpose one, and then you've knocked off the insects and the fungus. And do it probably every 2 weeks. And if you get a real wet, steamy patch in spring, maybe once a week.
Okay, excellent. Alrighty, guys, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining the live, and catch you on the next one.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And don't forget to get bare rooted.